Hi, and welcome to the Dr. Leaf Show. What does your dog's anxiety, your 2 a.m. panic attacks, and the fear of death all have in common? You are about to find out in today's episode. You are listening to the new Dr. Leaf Show. I'm so excited about this. We've made changes, and each week we will have 3 different segments designed to be more relevant, more practical, and more useful to your real life. First segment is trending in the news. Here I'm going to take a headline that everyone's talking about and look at it through the mental health and neuroscience lens. Then we go into the weekly deep dive, and this is where I will go into a topic that matters for your mind and your brain with real science and practical tools you can use immediately. And in the third section is Pick My Brain, our Q&A segment where I answer the questions you submitted and nothing is off limits. Now, here's what we're going to get into today. The trending topic is the viral conversation around dog FOMO, the fear of missing out, and separation anxiety, and what it reveals about how the mind builds anticipatory anxiety into the body before we even know it's happening. In our deep dive, I'm going to be talking about high-functioning anxiety, what it really is, what the non-conscious mind has actually been doing for you this whole time, and a 4-step framework to start working with the guidance it has already been giving you. Then in Pick My Brain, your questions on death, grief, and death anxiety, the ones you've been too afraid to voice anywhere else, I'm going to dive into those. We offer 2 tracks, one for licensed mental health and medical professionals who want to combine neuroscience research with structured clinical application to help clients create lasting change right at the root level. And there's also one for coaches, consultants, educators, and organizational leaders who want a rigorous, science-backed framework to guide high performers that they serve. Training takes place the 1st and 2nd week of September. It's virtual and in-person options that are available. So wherever you are in the world, there is a way in. Okay, so coming back to our dogs and what happens when they actually are anticipating us leaving. So an anticipatory network, an actual wired-in network in their brain and their body that their little minds wired in each time they saw my suitcase in the past. And now, as they see the suitcase again, it brings it back into their conscious minds, and they become aware of this, and they anticipate that separation. And this is not just a casual fear of missing out. There's an actual scientific explanation for this and research, and it's called the FAS response. Fear, anxiety, and stress, FAS, the FAS response. It's where your dogs quite literally anticipate or go into the same stress response that we as humans go into. Welcome back to segment 1, and this is where we talk about dogs and anxiety and how it mirrors our anxiety. You're going to see a picture of my fur babies, Simba and Nala, on the screen. And as if you're a dog parent, you know that look that they give you when you're just about to go out somewhere, or you've got the suitcases out because you're traveling somewhere, and they just look at you and they climb in your suitcase and they get all depressed, or they run around and bark or do weird things or pee all over the place. So coming back to our fur babies. So this kept happening, and so I did what I always do. So I found a whole lot of articles, and one in particular really stood out. So you'll see it attached. The link we'll put it in the show notes, so you'll be able to read the article. And I'm just going to highlight some of the points in this section of this podcast just to help you with understanding anxiety in your fur babies. And I think that you might be quite fascinated with what this research has shown. First thing is that dogs read your behavior with absolute precision. They can read you, and they can see the minute that you pick up the keys or put on the shoes, they know that you're going somewhere. There's going to be a change. So what happens is, as they see that happening, there's an anticipatory thought network is activated and moves into their conscious awareness. Welcome back to segment 1, where we talk about dog anxiety and how it affects us. These 2 little precious animals sleep in the bed with us, travel with us where we can take them, but there are times I can't take them with me on a conference or something, and they see the suitcases come out and they are so anxious. They climb in the suitcases, they start licking and they start barking and they pee everywhere and they just get really anxious. So I needed to sort this out. So I did then what I always do, which is research. Go check out the neuroscience. What does the research on neuroscience say about this response that I'm having in my dogs and that I know so many people experience, and how can we help them? And I found a lot of great research, and there was one article in particular that I really enjoyed, and I'm going to go through the highlights of that article now in this segment. Okay, so the first thing is that dogs are so good at reading your behavior with such precision. They learn, they watch you, and then build networks, they build thought patterns of what you do into their mind, brain, and body, just like we do as humans. So when they see you close the laptop and go out the door, or pick up the keys and go out the door, or put on your shoes and go out the door, they are building a network that says, when that happens, when my human does this, then they are going to go, they're going to leave me. And there's that separation anxiety is activated. So before you even out the door, you've just closed your laptop, you haven't even done anything else, the stress responses have been activated because the memory has been activated that you're going to leave them, and therefore the body goes into a full-blown stress response. So it's actually it's a research concept, and it's called FAS, which stands for fear, anxiety, and stress. It's an actual psycho-neurobiological or physiological, or in English, simple words, it's a mind-brain-body response that is real, that animals go through, where they will then show, it will come up in signals like excessive licking or excessive barking or running all over the place or peeing all over the place or behavior problems or getting all depressed like my dogs do. Whatever it is, it's real and it generates signals. And what's really interesting as well about this is that this pattern is pretty much a mirror of what we go through as humans. So research actually shows that and we all know this, you know this yourself, that when you have maybe fear of social rejection or fear of being left behind with that separation anxiety, then you go into a stress response because that memory comes up and it throws your body into a stress response. And so the same thing that you go through, our dogs go through, our pets go through. So it mirrors the human response, the whole neurophysiology, right down to the changes in the DNA, which is quite fascinating. So it's a wired-in response. It's a learned response. Now, it can be accelerated. There's certain things that can be stronger and therefore more anxiety-provoking for the dogs. And that is if they have unmet needs. And unmet needs would be things like not having enough exercise, not having enough stimulation, not having sufficient connection with their owners, that love connection. And dogs don't need a huge amount, but they do need enough of those. And if they don't have those, they don't feel safe. Age also plays a role with dogs. As you can guess, little puppies have no idea how to manage change. And then older dogs function very much as they love routine. So when their routines are disrupted, that can also make them not feel safe. So those can all kind of collaborate together, unmet needs, age, not constantly doing the same thing without recognizing the signals in your dog. All of that reinforces the network because the principle underlying is that whatever you do the most is going to keep growing and it becomes a stronger and stronger network. So therefore, over time, it actually gets worse. And I noticed this with my dogs, which is really why, I don't know why it took me so long to actually wake up and realize I've been doing some techniques and things that have really been helping me with my dogs, and I'm going to share those techniques with you now. So if you've noticed this in your dogs and your pets, this is what you can do. Okay, so the first thing is, this is a network that has built, as I explained, as you've picked up the keys, whatever it is that you do to signal that you're going out, and we just do it. I want you to be more aware of what those signals are. So take a little bit of time to observe what you do when you're about to leave the house, or what you do when you're about to travel, and even if you make a note of those. And then also observe your dog's reactions. This way you've created an awareness, and so now you can start planning to break that pattern, because there's a pattern that's been happening that created this thought network. So what we now need is pattern disruption. We need to disrupt that pattern, and that means that we have to rewire it in the brain. You're going to have to do this a few times. You're not going to do it just once and it works. We know that to change something, to rewire something, takes time, takes doing it daily for a period of time, at least for 6 to 9 weeks. To really start changing it. Okay, so pattern disruption. So what you do is, let's say that you notice that you close the laptop, you go out the door, you pick up the keys, let's stick with those examples, and you go out the door, you put on the shoes, you go out the door. I know I get fast and busy and I grab my bag and go out the door. And as soon as I do those, I watched myself and I found what I was doing. And I watched my dogs and I saw that they just suddenly went into the state and they just would sit on the couch or go in the suitcase, whichever, if I was traveling or leaving just for a few hours or something. So I observed that pattern. So then I started disrupting the pattern. So I would pick up my purse and I would pick up the keys and I would move around the house fast. And then I would dump my bag down on the table or something and I'd go sit down on the sofa, call the dogs over and tickle them and play with them and chat with them and then kind of carry on with my day. I observed my patterns of leaving, the response in the dogs, and then I took those and did those same patterns, but instead of leaving, I went and sat on the couch or gave them a treat or threw a toy or I played with them and I went back into a normal routine sitting in my office. So over time, that has really helped to break that pattern. So now when I leave, they're not so anxious because they don't anticipate me leaving when I do those things. And that brings me to the second main point. And this may sound crazy, but have a conversation with your dog. There's so much research showing that they understand words. They read your behaviors with precision. They learn certain word meanings, certain intonation patterns, and so on. They're pretty intelligent. When I am about to leave, I will sit down because they jump onto my sofa because they can watch the door. And I sit down with them and I tell them, I'm going off leaving, but I'm going to come back and mommy always comes back. And my husband just every time shakes his head because I'm saying, mommy will always come back. And I always come back and it's going to be okay. And you can, whatever you want to say to them. And I walk out the door and they sit on the sofa. And when I come back home, I always tell them, see, mommy came home. I always come home. So whatever phrase it is, it's the same phrase. The concept here is a simple phrase that they recognize that pattern of words and the intonation. And I use that repeatedly when I leave and when I come home. So it's pattern disruption and have a little conversation. Put those two together and you start helping your dog to manage their anxiety. Now it mirrors your anxiety. So when they're anxious, you also get anxious. So when you help to manage their anxiety, you manage your own anxiety. And what's so interesting is that if you are very stressed out, your dogs will come up to you and they will sniff at you and they can literally smell that stress on you. And then they experience the same stress. So if you are stressed as well about something and you're not managing it, just tell the dogs, breathe deeply, sit down, have a little conversation with them. So you calm yourself down, you calm them down because they literally absorb your stress. Okay, so there's some interesting facts about how to help our dogs. And in the process, we help ourselves because we do know from the research as well that when you stroke dogs, when you pat them, when you love them, when you do these things that I'm telling you, it's a fantastic way of you helping to turn your stress response, which is actually there to help you, into an intelligence to help you even more. So we are now hitting segment 2, understanding high-functioning anxiety. Are you that person? That person who's always busy, always saying yes, but you battle to sleep at night, or you wake up frequently, or you just don't seem to go into deep states of sleep. That is high-functioning anxiety. And high-functioning anxiety is not a personality type. It is actually a stress response that has gone crazy, okay? Stress is good for us. Stress is an intelligence. But when we don't manage it, then it becomes a liability. And high anxiety is an example of that. It's specifically an example of going into what we call the fine stress response, F-I-N-E, the fine stress response. Now, the fine stress response is where we say, I'm fine. So someone asks you, are you okay? Are you doing okay? And you immediately, I'm fine. And you brush it aside and you look calm on the outside and you seem okay. But inside you're in suppression, denial. You're pushing it down. It's the stress response where you put a mask on. So it seems like you are fine. And it seems like you're coping because one of the things of high functioning anxiety, which is basically from the fine response, is that we get very busy. We just do a lot of stuff. We keep ourselves very busy because keeping ourselves super busy means you don't have to face what it is that you need to face, that you're suppressing, that you're denying, that you just don't want to deal with. You know it's there, but you're just pushing it away. And now that may seem like you're coping, but it has various signals that are warning you. So if you keep pushing it down, what happens is that over time, this accumulates and you quite literally start paying like a body tax, literally a body tax, because this is accumulating under the hood. There's an accumulation of undealt with stuff. We're just not wired to not deal with our stuff. This episode is sponsored by Veracity, specifically their product Metabolism Ignite. which is the kind of thing that I actually get excited about recommending. Veracity was founded by Ellie Egan, a certified hormonal health coach who developed this after her own experience with metabolic issues. What they've built is a drug-free, clinically proven, plant-based GLP-1 booster and alternative. No injections, no side effects, just 2 capsules with breakfast. And clinical data shows an 85% reduction in hunger and an average of 9 pounds lost in 90 days. And it's sold out 10 times because people are getting real results. It's made from lemon verbena and hibiscus extracts, green coffee bean extract, and magnesium. Caffeine-free, safe to take alongside GLP-1 medications if you're already on them, and safe for new moms, which is rarer than it should be in this space. I love when something is scientifically rigorous but doesn't come with a warning label longer than the ingredient list. So, before metabolism ignites cells out again, make the switch to GLP-1s the natural way. Head to veracityhealth.co and use the code Dr. Leaf for up to 65% off your order. Once again, that's VERACITY health.co for up to 65% off. And make sure you use my promo code Dr. Leaf so they know I sent you. Summer is the season I actually pay attention to what I'm wearing. Not in a vain way, but in the sense that when the heat hits and life speeds up, I want to reach for things that feel good, look put together, and don't require any effort to maintain. And that's become my standard. And it took me years to find a brand that actually meets it without charging me as if the fabric was spun from gold. And that brand is Quince. They are sponsoring this episode. I've been wearing their 100% European linen this season, and I still can't explain how something so breathable and easy can look so polished. Linen pants, dresses, tops, styles starting at as low as $32. Their organic cotton sweaters are the thing I throw on for cool summer evenings, and their denim is so soft in a way that makes you forget it's denim. And everything is priced 50 to 80% less than comparable brands. And the reason they can do that is because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middleman entirely. You are paying for the quality, not the markup. And it's not just clothing. Quince has expanded into home, bedding, kitchen. They've become the place I go to when I want something that feels elevated without turning it into a whole research project to find something that's ethical and so on. So elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/leaf for free shipping on your order and a 365-day return. Now available in Canada as well. That's quince.com/leaf for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/leaf. When I started this show, I had no idea what I was walking into. I had the research, I had decades of work I wanted to share, but the business side of it, the building, the selling, the figuring out how to actually get what you've made into people's hands, that's a whole other world. And I remember thinking, I wish there was something that just held all of this together for me. One place, one platform, something that didn't require me to become a tech expert overnight. That's what Shopify is for millions of people. And it's this episode's sponsor. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. Millions of businesses, from household names you already know to people just starting out, are running on this platform. And what I love about it is that it's built to simplify, not add more complexity to your plate. You get hundreds of ready-to-use templates so your store looks like yours from day one. Shopify's AI tools write product descriptions and page headlines and even sharpen your product photography so you're not staring at a blank page wondering where to start. And when it comes to getting the word out, you can run email and social media campaigns right from the same place. No jumping between 5 different platforms trying to piece it all together, inventory, payments, analytics, international shipping, all in one place. And if you ever get stuck, they have great customer service 24/7. Start your business today with Shopify and start hearing this. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/leaf. Go to shopify.com/leaf. That's shopify.com/leaf. Every thought is the result of an experience. And if we've had an experience that we're trying to mask, it doesn't go away when you mask it or suppress it. It's there. It's responding to what's going on in the rest of your conscious mind, and it's there and alive and living and growing. And the longer you leave it undealt with and unprocessed, the bigger it gets. And that's what I mean by it accumulating. Now, when something that's not dealt with accumulates and you're masking it with the I'm fine response, what will happen is that certain signals will start showing up in your life. And one of those signals is high functioning anxiety. High functioning in that you seem very capable, you're very busy, you're getting everything done. But while you're getting everything done, there's this sense that something's just not quite right. You just can't put your finger on it. There's this sense in the back of your mind that, what's worrying me? Like this hovering sense of anxiety. And it just doesn't seem to go away. There's also this kind of sense in your body that, why am I getting these physical responses? So you're fine, you're busy, but there's these weird physical things happening inside of your body. Like maybe your cholesterol suddenly increased, or when you had your blood work checkup and suddenly your A1C, your insulin levels are off, or your sugar levels are wrong. And you think, why? I'm eating this healthy organic diet and I'm doing exercise and all this kind of stuff. Or you feel these aches and pains. So there's these weird kind of physical symptoms that start showing up in your body. You might also notice in your behaviors some changes. So things like, you're busy always. Every time there's something pops up that you've got to face, boom, you do something that distracts you from that. Now, some healthy distractions and being busy in a balance is okay. If you're dealing with your stuff and you're busy, that's okay. But if you're never dealing with your stuff, that's not okay. Now, what that does, that accumulation, eventually a little thing you just explode. Totally disproportionate to the trigger. So there's a behavioral reaction that is out of proportion to the stimulation or to the trigger. And that may not happen all the time, but it happens and builds. So you calm and then you have these explosions. There's also a shift in your perspective. That's another signal. And that is the way you look at life. Everything feels flat. So you may be at a friend's birthday party or a child's birthday party or a friend's function or having dinner with your family. And or you wake up in the morning and there's just this sense of flatness. That's also an indication of high functioning anxiety. So it's not just the lack of sleep that's making you feeling flat, but there's a sense of flatness that you can't really enjoy things as much. And there's a sense of almost being distanced from yourself. So all of those signals are coming from somewhere and telling you something. Where are they coming from? They are coming from the non-conscious mind, NON, not subconscious, not unconscious, non-conscious. Now, the non-conscious mind is your greatest friend. It is the part of you that is constantly processing everything about your life and building those into networks. It's working hard all the time. But not only is it processing the network, it is also processing the solutions and the guidance to that issue. So when you get those kinds of signals, when you start noticing that flatness and those weird symptoms that are out of sync with basically how you're functioning, like they just don't make sense, where you find yourself calm and then being activated, where you've got the sense that something is wrong, when you get all those signals coming up, that is coming from your non-conscious mind telling you to stop and acknowledge. Stand still, acknowledge. Those signals are data telling you that something is going on. And that something that's going on is something that has been repressed, suppressed, pushed away, coming from something that potentially happened at some point in your life, maybe childhood, whatever stage of your life. And you just haven't dealt with it. And it's having this carryover effect into your current life. So those signals are your non-conscious mind telling you, pay attention, and I have the solutions. So when you do stop and acknowledge, the key thing here is acknowledgement, then you can stand back and you can start making changes. Now, there was an interesting study. There's been 40 years of research around this concept of defined response, high anxiety, suppressing, all these things that I've been saying. In fact, back in 1979 already, they started doing this research, Weinberger, Schwartz, and Davidson, and they call this repressive coping. And the interesting thing about this repressive coping is that you seem okay on the outside, but the way that your physiology is functioning tells you another story. That's what repressive coping is. That's what produces or is part of this whole high anxiety pattern. And so basically, when they did lots of these different studies, what they found collectively over the 40 years is that these people would seem calm on the outside, say that they're calm and fine. But if you look at their physiology, like their heart rate variability, their blood pressure, those kinds of things, they were off the charts. And then over time, they go get blood work done and their cholesterol's crazy and all these different kinds of things they don't seem to align with their lifestyle. In fact, there was another study done, and that was in 2024, that found that the mind-built pattern that this is editing your gene expression while everyone applauds your output. So let me explain that. So in 2024, there was a whole big study, and it showed that we basically are living in this environment that we're all very familiar with, that is very productivity oriented, that kind of worships the busyness. So that those of you that are staying calm and busy are almost worship. That's not the right thing, because we know that all the studies and research show that this creates this high anxiety type pattern. And essentially what they showed in this particular study in 2024 was how that pattern edits your genes, the way your genes express themselves. So in simple language, it changes the structure of your brain and your body and how your genes are working, how they're switching on and off. And this is very significant, because every second that you're alive, you are building 800,000 to 1 million new cells. And those cells, the quality of those cells are dependent on how your mind is managing itself. So for every minute that we are suppressing stuff, or every second that we're suppressing stuff, it accumulates and it makes these physiological changes, which result in these outbursts and these panic attacks and these not sleeping at night and then falling back into these patterns of busy. And it's very hard, because in the culture that we live in, it's like a badge of honor to be busy. And that's not what we should be doing, because it's not healthy for the body, and it does create this deep, high anxiety, and it's on the increase. So awareness of this is very important. Most of us don't think twice about the water coming out of our tap. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But in my research and in conversations with people I work with around the world, contaminated tap water is one of the most underestimated threats to sustained cognitive function and hormonal health. And most standard filters do almost nothing to address this. 3 out of 4 US homes have detectable contaminants in their tap water. Chlorine, lead, forever chemicals, microplastics, they're in there, and the bottled water is not the answer either. It comes with its own microplastic load. So what I recommend to people who want to take this seriously is AquaTrue. It's a countertop purifier, no installation, no plumber, that uses a 4-stage reverse osmosis process certified to remove 84 contaminants, including the ones I just named. The water that comes out is measurably different. You can really taste the difference. 98% of AquaTrue customers say that their drinking water is cleaner, safer, and better tasting. And that adds up when you consider how much water we take in every single day. It's been independently recognized by Good Housekeeping, Business Insider, and Popular Science. Go to aquatrue.com and use the code Dr. Leaf for 20% off your purifier. AquaTrue even comes with a 30-day best tasting water guarantee. That's aquatrue.com, AQUATRU.com. Promo code DRLEAF. The skin is the body's largest organ and one of the first places stress and dehydration show up. Summer's beautiful, but long days in the sun, air conditioning, travel, it all pulls that moisture out. I found that lotion alone just wasn't enough, and that's what led me to add a body serum to my routine. Osea's Hyaluronic Body Serum is the one I reach for. It's amazing. The texture is weightless gel, no stickiness, it absorbs instantly. I layer it right after the shower, and what I notice is that my skin holds moisture differently throughout the day. That's the science. 5 molecular weights of hyaluronic acid working at different depths simultaneously, and clinically shown to deliver instant 24-hour hydration, support that the skin's moisture barrier needs, and address visible signs of aging as well. The aloe gives an immediate cooling effect, something I especially appreciate in the summer. Osea has been doing this since 1996, a mother-daughter brand from Malibu rooted in nature and backed by clinical testing. Osea's Hyaluronic Body Serum is multi-layered hyaluronic powered hydration for the entire body. And right now, we have a special discount just for you. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with the code LEAF at oseamalibu.com. That's the code LEAF at oseamalibu.com. Okay, so what can you do about it? So the first overarching principle is acknowledgement. We need to acknowledge that we're in this state. How? By listening to the signals. So literally standing back for a moment and just saying, okay, I just feel this sense of hovering anxiety. I just feel something is off. I just doesn't feel right and I'm feeling so anxious. So it's acknowledging your feelings. Acknowledge what your emotions are. Just observe yourself. Then look at your body. Where are you feeling this in your body? So here you are, for example, maybe calm on the outside, doing all the things you need to do, or sitting in that meeting and calm with a calm expression on your face, and you saying yes to all these things that you know you can't really fit in your schedule or whatever the case may be, and you can feel that your heart's beating so fast, that your heart rate variability, that's not doing what it should do. So first thing is to acknowledge the emotion. Second thing is acknowledge what your body feels like that seems contradictory to you're looking all calm and peaceful, but your heart's just about to fly out your chest. The third thing is, what are your behaviors like? Just think, cast your mind back to maybe the past meeting or the past week and think of, were there certain things that triggered you? I'm thinking of one thing just right now myself, because I'm very good at going in the fine response, but I've learned how to manage it. So I know how to identify, do these things. I still fall into it, but I do these things and I can get out of it quicker. But just yesterday, someone sent something in an email that was honestly not even a big deal. And my reaction was ridiculous. And it was because of this high anxiety. I was functioning on high anxiety through the course of the day, so I didn't handle it well. So once I did all these things that I'm telling you, I calmed down and I could identify and I could fix it in the moment. Okay, so then the other thing is your perspective. Overarchingly, are you looking at life with a sort of flatness? Are you finding that you going out for dinner, or waking up in the morning, or things that you used to enjoy, there's a level of flatness around it? So how can you do this practically? Write down the most insistent thought running this week. So what is the most insistent thought that has been running this week in your mind? The real one, not the surface one, okay? The real one that's really been capturing your attention. This is your non-conscious trying to get your attention. Intrusive thoughts are data. So write that down, because that thought, you could take that thought and then put it through those 4 things that I just said, acknowledging your emotions, behaviors, bodily sensations, and perspectives. So find the thoughts, write it down, put it through those 4 signals. Secondly, ask yourself when you started first believing that, not why. When did you start first believing that thought? See, when you ask, when tells you what your non-conscious built to protect you from. The when will tell you that, why doesn't. So when did it start? So in other words, what is the source? Where did this thing start? Where did it come from? And you may have to do a little bit of work to backtrack there. So it's the when, not why. Then the third thing is, what is my non-conscious mind already telling me about this, to do about this? Okay, so third thing, what is my non-conscious mind, which gives us advice? What's my intuition, my gut feeling, my insight, maybe even my dreams, whatever? What's been at the back of your mind trying to tell you, hey, stop doing this, change that. Take some time to listen to what the non-conscious is already telling you. And then the fourth thing, do one small action that proves to you that the old story is wrong, which is that whole thing that I've got to squash it down and not deal with it. So one small action that proves to you that the old story is wrong. Welcome back to segment 3, and this is the part where you pick my brain and I answer your questions. And this week's questions are all about death, grief, and death anxiety. So the first question that I'm going to address is, feeling nothing after someone dies a sign that something wrong with me? Absolutely not. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. This is a very normal protective response that our mind-brain-body connection, or our psycho-neurobiology, goes into in that moment of shock. Whether it is someone who, even if someone was very ill and you're expecting the death at some point, or whether it was traumatic, in both cases, you go into shock. So your conscious mind goes into a stuck loop between the mind, brain, and body, and it gets stuck there, and your body goes into a stress response that almost protects you, because it's so big, the pain, that you just want to feel nothing, because it's just too much pain to feel in that very moment. So it's a protective mechanism that initially kicks in. Then after that, it will start releasing and changing. So this is not a failure. This is an absolutely normal response, because it's too big for your conscious mind to process. Now, your conscious mind is limited in what it can process, understand, deal with, etc. But your non-conscious mind, which is the deepest and wisest part of you and does all this incredible stuff, it knows how to process that. But it also knows what your conscious mind can handle in the moment. So the non-conscious mind pretty much drives this sense that I'm not feeling anything, because it knows that you need that in that moment to protect you in that moment that it happens. What can keep us stuck in this state is when our conscious mind, so once we've gone through that initial shock, then we start feeling, and then we start feeling worse because then the conscious mind starts layering stories on top of that. And those are the kinds of things like, I should have done more. A regret cycle kicks in, and you start layering a story on top of it. And it creates this regret cycle that can then add to a tremendous sense of like you've let someone down, and it makes you feel even worse. So that can create a different type of stuckness. And that's the one that we need to catch very fast and start rewiring that, because that will keep us stuck in a place where we will battle to move forward if we start blaming ourselves. So when we start building those narratives into our mind, this is when the conscious mind is adding more and more layers. And when we add more and more layers of the things like the regret cycle and so on, that then makes it more difficult for us to hear the unconscious mind. So it's important in those moments to step back and question what the narrative that we are adding onto the trauma of the loss, and then letting ourselves listen to the wise guidance that will slowly start filtering through from the unconscious mind. So you need to be able to allow yourself to feel what you feel, because as you do allow yourself to feel what you feel, you start breaking that loop between the conscious mind brain that's kept you stuck and that was made worse by the extra narratives that you put on it. As you start allowing yourself to feel what you feel, to feel the grief, to cry, to speak it out, to talk about it, as you start doing that, you then open the door, you get unstuck, and the unconscious mind that has the solutions for how to handle what you're going through can start slowly filtering through and help to facilitate your healing. Let's now go to question 2. Question 2. Why do some people grieve longer than others? The answer to this is that our mind builds attachments differently. We're also different, we know that. So as unique as we are as humans, our attachments are different. So you can have one family that has a loss and everyone builds it differently. This is just very normal. And because we build those attachments differently, we respond in different ways and we handle grief differently. So essentially, your unconscious mind, as you're in relationship with that person while they're still in their physical body, still alive, is building all of those attachments, interactions, times you spent with them, all the relational items, everything you've experienced. At every single time you experience anything with that person, every thought, every interaction, all gets built by your unconscious mind into a network with that person. So that person and you, there's a whole network inside of you. And every interaction added and added. So now suddenly that person's physical body is gone, but this is still alive, and it's calling to that physical body, and that physical body is not there to respond. So that attachment has to be reconstructed. It has to be reorganized. It has to be updated and changed. And that is a very painful process, and that's different for everyone, because how those attachments formed, how they're built, is very uniquely different for each person. So when this happens, then this has to reorganize in that timing. And so this has to, as this is reorganizing, rewiring, to recognize that the physical body is no longer there, that process is very complex and very different for each person. That's why it takes long. So if we look inside the brain, we can see prolonged grief or grief changes, the difference in how people handle grief. We can see a response in how a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, which is known as the feedback circuitry of the brain. We can see how that's slightly different. So someone's in prolonged grief, or they're taking longer to grieve than other people. There's no judgment. There's no right or wrong way of grieving. Let me just stress that. Then the nucleus accumbens is not thinking. It's just responding to whatever you need to do to go through that grief. What we do see when people are really battling, or there's prolonged grief for whatever reason, sometimes we need a more prolonged grief period, we will see more activity in the nucleus accumbens. And over time, as they reorganize it, then we see less activity in the nucleus accumbens. Our non-conscious mind knows exactly how to guide us through this process. And this is why it's so important to get support during grief, to understand how to process through grief, because that will help them with this rewiring process. Okay, the next question. What's the difference between grief and anticipatory grief? Okay, so grief looks backward. It's backward looking. It's your mind reorganizing essentially what has already happened. Okay, so grief is backward looking. It's a reorganizing of the fact that the physical body is gone. Anticipatory grief is when someone's still alive, but you are grieving. So, for example, someone who's maybe got a dementia and they're not who they were, or someone's got a prolonged illness and you're literally watching them die in front of you, or someone has a severe mental health challenge and you're seeing them just not become themselves, and that's happening in front of you. So there's that anticipatory grief. What makes anticipatory grief so hard is that when the person does die, their physical body dies, you experience the grief twice. So you've grieved while they're alive, and then you grieve again a second time. So it's like a double thing, and that makes it so much more difficult. So what's happening with anticipatory grief is that your mind is actually having to process two versions of loss. One while the person is still there, and one when they're gone. Question number 4. Do you actually feel pain when you are dying? At this stage, the research is actually very hopeful. Not 100% confirmed, but from my leaning, I lean towards the research that shows that there is no pain. So there's actual fantastic research in near-death experiences showing that as people transition, they have things like life reviews, and when they come back, a near-death experience means that they've died and literally have been declared dead, and they've come back and they've explained that experience. And from those, there's thousands that have been documented and analyzed very scientifically, and they talk about the fact that there is no pain. Neuroscientifically, there's been some research done, and they've shown, there's been brain studies that have actually shown that during cardiac events, when a person's dying, that the brain shows very specific patterns, and the parts of your brain that register pain actually shut down, literally. So regions associated with pain expression show decreased activity, sometimes even shutting down. And also the areas that are associated with visual memory and emotions become more active. So the pain areas shut down and the visual areas become more active, and that kind of aligns with these near-death experience studies as well. So the neurological data suggests that people don't experience pain when they die. Last question. My mom died 6 years ago and I still can't open her voicemails. Is something wrong with me? Absolutely not. When you hear her voice, it doesn't just bring up memories. It brings up the entire network with everything about your relationship with that person, with your mom. And so there's an anticipation of her voice. So listening to the voicemail, there's an expectation that when you hear her voice, you'll see her physically. All of that comes back. So it's very real and active. And it creates, we call this dissonance, disorientating dissonance. So it creates a disorientation because basically the conscious mind registers the contradiction. You're hearing her voice. There's an anticipation of her being there physically because you're hearing her voice, but she's not there. So it's a contradiction. And that creates a lot of dissonance, a lot of trauma inside of you. And it's hard. And that's why one wants to push it away. So when you think about opening her voicemail, what does your body do? Do you feel like you will lose her again? Or do you feel like opening them will prove to her that she's really gone and you're not quite ready for that yet? So if you just hang around those questions for a while and just wait for the answers to come, you're going to start feeling a level of peace. Your dog's suitcase panic and yours have got the same root, a predictive pattern that the mind built and the body is expressing. High-functioning anxiety is not your personality. It is a pattern your non-conscious mind built to protect you and is rooted in the fine response. And it has been building the guidance to release it ever since. The work is in the listening, not overriding, not masking. Grief has no timeline, no right way and no wrong feelings. Your mind is integrating and not failing. Death anxiety, anticipatory grief, miscarriage loss, relief, flatness, all of it is neurologically valid and none of it makes you damaged. Your non-conscious mind is the wisest part of you. Your conscious mind gets to choose. Amplify the toxicity by adding reactions or apply the guidance that is already there in your insight. Everything we talked about today, the tools, the research, the full Neurocycle protocol is at drleaf.com. And if you feel called to take this work further professionally, certification in the Neurocycle method opens in September with training in the first and second weeks of the month. All details and applications at drleaf.com. Spots are limited, so don't wait. See you next week. Take care of your mind. It's the most important thing that you have. It is your superpower.